And today's it's always a special show, Teddy, to be on with you
Every day, man.
every week. Randy Wooden, Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina. I run our professional center. So as you might expect, we help professionals with their job transition. A number of clients have joined us on this call and other ones in the past. So again, we're free. We're happy to help. I teach LinkedIn. I teach, you name it. We do this show. We help with resumes. And so Teddy and I kind of got the thought a few months back in springtime about putting together a talk show that addresses job hunter concerns. And also professional development and getting to know ourselves, our strengths, how we our image, how we present ourselves, and a whole host of topics. And so today is no different. Malcolm MacDougall joins us. Malcolm, I met you. I think our CEO, Art Gibble, referred you my way. You have your own consultancy. It's Organizational Performance Training Group. And you're into a few pretty cool things. So I'm just going to kind of have you take it from here to talk about Clifton Strengths. And many people may not be aware of what that is. So who are you and why are you here?
Yeah, well, so, you and I shared a CEO at different times. Art Gibble was CEO for Hanes Brands, a group there, and I worked in his division. And Art put us together, and that super smart of him to do it because we really love a lot of the same stuff, Randy. We really love helping people. So I had a 34-year career with Electrolux, Sara Lee, and Hanes Brands. I left the company, had a great conversation with them as I went out the door, December of 2019. I was ready to start flying to Central America to help do some training for their facilities down there in February. And then a little thing called COVID hit. So that sort of put a lockdown on a lot of the work that I was hoping to do. But I'm super excited to be here and talk about Clifton Strengths and talk about really, as you'll see, my mission of really helping people have great jobs here. And a great job is really one that drives outcomes for the company and enhances really the well-being of the employee at the same time. So.
Here's a special bonus for anybody who is watching today's show. So we're going to kind of talk about it now. And as we get at the end of the show, we're going to divulge more information. But for Clifton Strengths, if you've taken the assessment, great. If you haven't, and you're kind of tuned into this thing to say, what the heck is this? And how is it going to matter in my life? Stay on the call, stay on the message all the way through, because what Malcolm has agreed to do for free is to host a couple of separate 2-hour workshops to better understand Clifton Strengths and to answer some of the most common questions. Now, why 2 workshops? Well, one is going to be focused on a job hunter and how you can use Clifton Strengths to enhance your job search. The other piece, because our audience is not all job seekers, the other piece is, okay, I have a job. How can I use Clifton Strengths to more effectively communicate with my coworkers and how to really help myself do a better job, be more productive as a worker? So 2 separate workshops. What we're going to do is to post the email address. All right. You need to email Malcolm, mention that you saw him on Lunch with Randy and Teddy, and mention whether you're a job hunter or whether you're an employee. And then the first 25 for each of those 2 categories, because he's got it maxed out at 25 people, he'll then get back to you with an email that says, okay, here are some dates that we're going to be considering doing this. And we're also going to limit this. You've got to do it within half an hour by the time we get done here. So if you're on the call, stay on the call. We're going to provide that intel. But this is an extra service that Malcolm's providing for free. And you don't have to have already purchased a book yet. But if you do decide to sit on the workshop, then there's some ways that you need to access the assessment, and he'll share more about that. So did I get that right? Is that about?
Yeah, well, actually the contact will be through my website, and the website was the first chat post that went up this morning.
All right.
Copying that and sharing it forward.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So the email is contained in that then, I guess, right?
Yes, they can use the contact writing note feature and send me a message through the website, and I'll receive it.
Okay, and reference the Randy and Teddy, and also the fact that they better be done by 1:30 Eastern time. We need to cut that off at some point. So that's that. Now, I ask this of every guest, Malcolm, so I'm going to ask this of you. Why are you doing what you do? What's the why for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I had a 34-year career, and I loved almost every minute of it. I won't lie and say that I wasn't frustrated on a day or two here or there, but I went through my career and got to use my analytical skills and a lot of my leadership skills as I went through. And in 2018, I was put in charge of a team. My last job was Director of Global Planning for HanesBrands, and I had that title for 10 years. But during those 10 years, I had 5 different positions, really, working with 5 different teams. And in my last team, I realized that people in corporate America are really struggling. They're going through their careers with a lot of burnout. They're really not getting to do what they love to do. They really don't know what their talent is. I had to tell them how great they were, right? They didn't really understand that. And I was sitting at my desk one day, getting ready to do the latest HR annual review process with my team. And it just hit me that I want to help people have great jobs. And that's really what I've been doing my entire career, but I really want to become laser focused on it. How can I help people really love what they're doing?
Fair enough. Well, let's dive into it. I know you've got some slides, and this is going to be a little fun, Teddy. Normally, we drive the conversation with questions, but Malcolm's going to ask questions of us. At least that's the rumor. So,
of you and me?
Put your thinking cap on. Yeah.
Yeah, get that cap ready.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are going to have a little fun. I'm going to share screen, and I'm going to actually start out with a video. And if everything goes well, we'll share the sound and share the screen. And I'm going to have you guys watch a little Geico 30-second video here.
All right.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Everybody knows that.
Well, did you know Pinocchio was a bad motivational speaker?
I look around this room and I see nothing but untapped potential. You have potential. You have, oh boy.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Uh-oh.
So we watched that video and we laughed. I laughed. I thought it was funny. I think, Geico spends millions of dollars every year on advertising. They do a lot of research and they spend their money wisely. So the question that I had to ask myself was, well, why do we find that video so funny? Yeah. And, why is it so obvious that Pinocchio would be a bad motivational speaker? Well, obviously, yeah, because his nose is going to grow if he tells a lie, right? Well, yeah, but you need to go a little deeper than that. And unfortunately, you need to go a little bit darker than that. The reason why we find that video funny is because Pinocchio's nose is going to grow. Not because he's a born liar, but because people at a motivational conference, those people don't have potential. Those people don't have talent. We all know it, right? As a society, we've all bought into the myth that talent is something that only a few people have. Those lucky few, the rock star, the movie star, the sports star, the famous in general, those people have talent. The rest of us, maybe I have talent, but my neighbors, my peers, they don't have talent, right? We, as a society, we really believe that talent is rare. But I'm here to tell you the good news. Talent is not rare. Talent is ubiquitous with the human experience. And I'm going to go back and share a screen and get on the presentation now.
And while you're doing that, Malcolm, I know there's one person on this call, and when that word ubiquitous came up, her ears perked up. Let me just share that little
I know.
inside joke there, but yeah.
Yeah, well, people who are familiar with the movie The Princess Bride are probably going to say, well, Malcolm, I don't think you really understand what that word means. But I can assure you, I do understand what the word ubiquitous means. It means present, appearing, found everywhere. And the synonyms are really impressive. Talent is omnipresent. Talent is present everywhere. Talent is abundant. Talent is universal, global, prevalent, predominant. Talent is very common. It's extensive. It's wide-ranging. Talent is inescapable. Actually, the opposite would be rare and scarce. So really, Zig Ziglar got it right. To use a simple quote, you were designed for accomplishment, engineered for success, and endowed with the seeds of greatness. In other words, each and every one of us was born with talent. Now, I'm not saying that everybody's aware of their talent. I'm not saying that everybody is recognized for their talent by other people. But we all have it, and we're capable of using it. To put it very simply, talent is not rare. That's the one. If I was going to have you take away one point from today, that would be the point. But there is that bad news, right? We're not all aware of what our talents are. I certainly know we're not all recognized for it. Think about it. What did it take for our society to recognize the talent in essential workers? It took a pandemic before we even started talking about the bravery and the talent of the average essential worker. So this is a great time to have this conversation about talent. Just imagine the loss for the individual when we're not aware of our talent, when it's not recognized. Think about the loss for the organizations that we work for. Think about the loss for the society. Resources are limited. We live with a scarce mindset. But talent is abundant. So today I want to welcome everybody to a topic that I just absolutely love to talk about, and it's Clifton strengths. And we'll see if we can go forward here. So just very quickly, what is Clifton Strengths? Clifton Strengths is a personal development program. The program uses an online assessment to help you become aware of your most powerful natural talents. The program provides direction on how to transform these talents into strengths. And then the main focus of the program is to leverage your greatest strengths and to increase outcomes in your personal and professional life. So this is one of the things that really drew me to Clifton Strengths versus other assessments, was the sense that I could actually use the knowledge to create outcomes, to really do a better job at whatever I wanted to accomplish. So why strengths? Why should we be so excited about people using their talent, using their natural strength? Well, Gallup has done a lot of research on this, and they've determined that people who actively use their strengths are 3 times more likely to report having an excellent quality of life. They're 6 times more likely to be engaged in their job. Teams that focus on strengths every day are 12.5% more productive. So let's put that in perspective. 12.5% of the US gross national product would be $2 trillion. By not focusing on people's talents, we're giving up on $2 trillion.
So there's a real cost here, Malcolm, from a bottom line, because I think you're going to get pushback from CFOs and others out there to say, well, it's all well and good. That's kumbaya. We're going to hold hands and everybody will, learn about each other and get. But if you can put some numbers to this thing and say, hey, this is a bottom line issue, I think, companies are going to be a bit more open and responsive. Have you found that to somewhat be the case at this point?
Here's what's funny. I'm not a born salesperson. I worked in the supply chain for 34 years. I'm not even an HR professional. So when I go in to sell this into a client, I had to learn that I needed to start with that number of 12.5% first. That had to be the first thing that I talked about, Randy, because that made sense to people. Talking about talent sounded fun. It sounded soft, fluffy. But talking about 12.5%, that meant something. And I'll tell you right now, the work that I do, 12.5% is a minimum. We're talking 20% gains in productivity in the first year of implementing Clifton Strengths and some other tools that I implement.
Yeah, that numbers are globally over the U.S. I'm with you. There are organizations who can focus on the strengths of their employees. That number is a drop in the bucket.
Absolutely. When you start looking at 12.5%, one of the other things I like to put it into context is this way. You're a manager of an 8-person team. If you could get 12.5% more productivity, what would you do with a 9th person to drive top line and bottom line dollars for your company?
That's a picture question. That's what's called.
Now, but if we put this in context to a job seeker, Malcolm, then how do you look at that from the perspective of an individual? How can an individual present themselves better with this understanding?
Well, Teddy, you're about 3 or 4 slides ahead of me. So I'm going to tell you this. We're going to get there because that is an absolutely perfect question. All right. And I do want to note here that 90% of Fortune 500 companies use Gallup tools. Now, you're probably wondering, Malcolm, you keep on using the name Gallup. Do you mean the polling company? Well, actually, I do. But what's interesting is the polling company no longer really does polling. 2% of Gallup's income comes from polling. They're a world leader in employee development and employee engagement. So how did Clifton Strengths and Gallup become intertwined? Well, Don Clifton, a decorated World War II veteran, professor, researcher, entrepreneur, and CEO, is the creator of Clifton Strengths. His primary research and business model was focusing on what made successful people successful. Clifton was an entrepreneur, as I mentioned, and he created a company, Selection Research Incorporated. The goal of that company, the business model, was to help companies select employees. They were so good at it and grew so much that in 1988, SRI and Clifton purchased Gallup Corporation from George Gallup. From that point on, Gallup started to change its business model to become a global leader in employee engagement and development, focusing in 3 basic areas: employee selection, organizational engagement, which is their Q12 assessment tool, which I'm familiar with, and individual and team development, which is done through their Clifton Strengths. So
Yeah, I was going to jump in, Malcolm. I want to keep our focus on the job hunter here, and
Yep.
and a lot of this is a lot of background kind of intel that maybe if we had a longer time, we've got a lot of content to cover. And my fear is we're going to get too deep in the weeds with some of this stuff. And I think the people that are watching, they want to know, how do I take this? How do I implement this in my life? That kind of thing. So if we can kind of shift a bit toward that, I think that'll address some of the stuff that is I guess most compelling for people that might be watching.
Perfect. Yep. So we've talked a lot about talent. So before we can make that transition to that very specific discussion, let me give you a definition of talent. And talent, the Gallup definition is a naturally recurring pattern of thought, feeling, or behavior that can be productively applied. So in other words, a talent is something that you naturally possess, and you do it over and over again, so much so that you might not even recognize it as a talent. It's a way of thinking, it's a way of feeling, and it's a way of behaving or doing that can be productively applied. So keep that in mind. And I'm going to take a moment here and do a little spoiler alert. There are 34 themes of talent across 4 domains. And here I've got Teddy, Randy, and Malcolm broken out. And you guys are familiar with your top 5, and I've got my top 5 here. My top 5 are relator, analytical, achiever. Let's see, I got them out of order there. Learner and activator. So we're gonna do a little example right here. I'm gonna come out of the share mode, and we're gonna go through a quick little exercise, and it's gonna start to get to that point, Randy. Thanks for moving me along. So here's the exercise, and I want everybody to do it. Randy, Teddy, pay specific attention. There will be questions at the end.
Oh man,
but I want.
I didn't sign up for questions, dude.
But I want everybody to answer these questions. So here's a typical job scenario. There we go. Let's do this exercise. Imagine that you're attending a conference and there are 500 other attendees. You know maybe 25 or 50 people of the 500. They're coworkers or people that you've met through the business. The convention center is set up with 2 big rooms. One room is the auditorium. You know, it has all those narrow little tables with the cloth and the modesty skirt on it, and all the chairs are facing the podium. And there's like 500 of them, right? There's like 25 rows of 20. The other room is a dining room, and it has maybe 8 buffet lines and a bunch of round tables that can hold 6 to 8 people. All right, so you've been here before, right? This is a common business situation. You arrive in the morning. Here's the first question. What do you do when you arrive? They're offering some breakfast. I'll mention that. But Randy, you've arrived at the conference. There are 2 rooms, the auditorium, which has open seating, and the breakfast area, the big dining room. What do you do when you get there?
I probably eat.
Okay. All right. All right, perfect. And then you're going to move to the auditorium. Where do you sit? Do you sit in the front, the back, the middle, the side closest to the bathrooms? Or where do you sit?
Sit next to the prettiest woman. I don't know. I sit a bit to the left because I'm a left-hander, and when I want to look at the presenter, I want to be able to look and not have to look across my body. So I'd sit toward the front and to the speaker's right a little.
Perfect. Hey, Teddy, how about yourself?
So I'm gonna go eat first. I'm gonna get eating done out of the way as soon as I can. I'm gonna sit at one of those tables but it has people. I'm not gonna sit at a table where there's no people. I've got to do that. I'll be munching down on my biscuit and gravy and my coffee. And then I'm gonna go to the auditorium and I'm going to look for where Randy is and sit as far away from him as I can. No, I actually will, and he knows I will. I'll say hi to him, but I'm going to go sit where, somebody else is I've never met. And I'm going to sit in such a way, if I'm there early, I want to be able to see who's coming in, and I want to be able to pivot so I can see the dude talking.
Yep. Perfect. Totally predictable by your talents. So I'm going to tell you what I would do. First thing I'm going to do is go in.
So Dean's going to go to the buffet line, and Kelly's going to go as quickly as he can and get a biscuit.
Someone said that breakfast was the most important meal of the day also. So that's right.
Kelly. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into the auditorium first and pick out a front row seat middle, because I don't want to be distracted by anybody else. I want to watch the presentations and take notes. Yeah. Then I'm going to go into the breakfast room, and if possible, I may sit by myself. I'm perfectly happy sitting by myself. So let's talk about this. This is great. I'm going to go back to the screen share for I'm going to stay here for a minute. I'm going to start with Teddy. Teddy, your number 2 talent is woo, winning others over. I knew you had that from watching the very first time you did this show, because you're gregarious. You are able to meet people. You enjoy meeting people. You get energy from meeting new people. You love it. Randy, I wasn't quite so sure about. I knew he was good with people, but I thought, I think Randy could sit down with just one person and get engaged in a very good conversation with that person. But I don't think he'd be nervous about meeting 50 people. He'd be happy to meet people at a conference. Yeah. That's because he's got connectedness, number 4, which means he may have never met a stranger in his life. They're just people, friends he hasn't met yet. He also has relator number 10 and woo number 13. Those are powerful talents for meeting people. They're relationship building and they're influencing talents. Now, I'm a relator, which means I like working by myself. Yeah, go ahead.
We got to do this. It's a half hour into the show.
Yep.
At the half hour mark, we're obligated to stop. And thank everybody for showing up. Really great people showing up today. Drop questions in the chat so we can ask Malcolm. MacDougall is here with Randy and I. The conversation's about Gallup Strength Finder. It's about how you, as a job seeker, can understand your strengths so you can get the most out of it in your career journey. Malcolm, back to you.
Perfect. I'm gonna keep moving. You guys are doing a great job keeping me moving along here. I love it. I'm gonna share a couple of slides real quick, and we'll get right down to it. Okay, I'm sharing again, right?
Yep.
Perfect. So again, I mentioned relator, woo, connectedness. These are relationship building, and relationships are important. Randy and Teddy talk about this all the time. They talk about networking. And what I want to point out is Teddy approaches it very differently than I do. Teddy is very comfortable meeting 50 people. He's looking to meet new people. That is not my go-to preference. But once I learned Clifton strengths, I'm actually introverted. I'm actually an INTJ in Myers-Briggs, right? So no big surprise there. I would like to eat breakfast by myself potentially. But as a relator, I'm very good at creating relationships, but only one-on-one or in small groups. So these are things that you need to become aware of, especially for a job searcher, because networking is so critical, as Randy and Teddy are always pointing out. So very quickly, just give you a smattering of Clifton strengths. Clifton strengths is broken out into 4 domains: strategic thinking, relationship building, influencing others, and executing. And no matter what you're doing, you're using those 4 basic domains to accomplish outcomes. Clifton Strengths has 34 different themes of talent, and they're broken out by the 4 domains. The important thing here is once you learn what the words mean, they become a language for getting better, for improving. All right. And then I'm going to switch to, now we're going to talk about resume. Let me move through here real quick. Perfect. All right. So Teddy, I'm going to get right back to your question, resume. We always put in a, typical format may have an objective, may have your education, top or bottom as appropriate. You're going to get your experience on there. You're going to get your achievements on there. You might even have a breakout session that talks about skills, right? But when we think about it, these are really minimum requirements. This is like customer service. I expect customer service to be good. I'm not going to buy products from you if it isn't. So the minimum requirements is really education, experience, and skills. But as you move through the process, I can tell you what I hire for. I hire for talent. My best hires are people that minimally meet the education, experience, and skill requirements, but I know they have talent that I can help bring out of them. And so, we've had some really great speakers on the last couple weeks. And I want to mention a couple of those speakers. We had Lisa Lamb on 2 weeks ago, and Lisa is from North Carolina Works. And Lisa mentioned something really great. We need to always be reinventing ourselves or we become obsolete. All right, well, I agree with that 100%, but I have a caveat. You need to reinvent your skills. You need to increase your experience, but your talents are your talents. You can't reinvent talent. You have it or you don't have it. Now you have it, but which talents do you have of those 34? Your top 5 talents represent 66% of your power. Your top 10 talents represent 93% of how you get stuff done, how you accomplish things. So what are your top 10 talents? Steve Miller was on a week ago and did a great job. I made a couple notes of what he said. Steve talked about the loss of identity when you're between jobs. Oh, I get it. It is difficult. But we can't let our identity be the task that we did on our last job. We have to take the skills and the experience with us, but even more importantly, the talent that we have never leaves us, never becomes obsolete. And then Steve went on to say, once you really believe in yourself, that will really come through. And he's right. When you know what your talent is, when your talents are, when you really know them and are aware of them and can leverage them, then you really come across as a confident person. Go ahead, Teddy.
So Malcolm, a thought. So if, go back to the list of the 34, if you don't mind.
Yep. Let's see if I can work my way back up there.
Right?
Yep.
Right there. Okay. So let's say I'm not an analytical person, but I love to be in that space, but I don't have that talent. Is there a way for me to improve that talent? Not just the skills by taking courses, but is there a way to improve that talent?
So Gallup would say, no, there really isn't. And here's what I would say. If you really like analytical work, it probably gives you a lot of energy to do it. It probably is a talent you have. If you don't have an analytical talent, you probably don't like working with numbers. But here's the key question. Here's the key question. Well, what if my job requires that I'm good with numbers? You have 2 choices. You can become operational, functional with numbers by trying to develop some skills, by using some of your other talents, or you can get a different job, right? So I don't want to limit people. So here's one thing I want to tell people thanks for bringing this up. you have a top 5 list of talent. Now, I'm an INTJ, Myers-Briggs. There's only 16 possible combinations, Teddy and Randy, on Myers-Briggs. I represent 4% of the population as an INTJ. I'm the scientist. I have a label. You can label me. With Clifton Strengths, I can't label you because your top 5, there's only one chance in 278,000 people that someone has the same top 5 as you in any sequence. The chance that someone has the same top 5 as you in exactly the same sequence, 1 in 33 million people. The chance that someone has your top 10 in any sequence, it's more likely nobody has ever been born in the entire existence of human beings. You are unique. So I can't tell you just by looking at your strengths that you're not good at analytical.
And you know that you are you. Isn't that a Dr. Seuss statement, dude? Are you stealing the dude's stuff?
Probably so. No one is you. No one is more you than you, or something like that.
You are you. You are you. That is truer than true. There is no one out there who is you.
Youer than you. Youer than you. You got it. I've used that quote before because it's exactly true with Clifton Strengths. And that's why you need to take the assessment and read the very personal online documents that are created for you, in addition to reading the book that you can buy to come with it. But
I say the same thing, Malcolm. You have to read the book. You just can't take the assessment. I mean, you got to understand what it's saying about, let me say it another way. You have to understand what you are saying about yourself when you discover this information. And then most importantly, you then have to figure out, now what am I going to do with it? That's where I think a lot of people fail, because, we all take Myers-Briggs and DISC and, and Rita works for an organization, The Resource. They have an assessment tool that's really pretty cool, and then Strength Finders. And what do you do with it? That's the magic.
Exactly. And I took DISC, I can't remember the name of the lady we had on. She did a fantastic job. I took DISC. I enjoyed it. I've taken predictive index. I know my Myers-Briggs inhibited my ability to be a good employee for 27 years. I knew I was introverted. I thought that meant I wasn't good at creating relationships with people. It turns out my number one superpower is relator. I'm super good at building teams, small groups of people. I spent 27 years believing I wasn't good at something that was actually my most impressive talent. The last 2 years I spent at Hanesbrands, I was a different person. I was bringing far more value. That 12.5% improvement, forget it. I was way better than that.
So Malcolm, somebody just asked, and I apologize, I didn't write down her name. I think it was Elsa asked this: how can we get these assessments? Do you want to speak to that now? So we've got about 5 minutes left.
Yeah, I'm going to jump forward a little bit here. I'm going to ask one question. When is the best time to plant a shade tree? The answer is 20 years ago. And I get that all the time when people take Clifton Strengths. I should have done this 20 years ago. When's the next best time? Today. So great question. What does it take to get your Clifton Strengths assessment? Number one, you need to, it's inexpensive to get your top 5. It's the cost of a book. Go ahead, Randy.
Let me jump in here for folks that are watching. Malcolm is not making a commission on this. This is simply a resource. He's given us, we don't pay him to be on the show. He's not making a spiff based on how many books he can sell or whatever. He's just providing information. And he's going to also do a couple of free 2-hour workshops. We alluded to that at the top of the show. We're going to get more detail as we wrap up. So I'm going to make sure you've got your paper and pen handy. because you don't want to miss this. So I just wanted to throw that out there in case you think you're about to get hit with a sales pitch. You're not.
Yeah.
This is info. You can buy this stuff on Amazon. You can go anywhere and find it. Malcolm's not making a buck off this.
Randy, thanks. I know I get very excited, and I actually might sound like a salesperson. But you can, the way to take your assessment is to buy a book. It's going to cost you probably less than $20. You could get it from Amazon. You could get it from Gallup. Buy a book. There's 6 of the books that will give you the coupon for a one-time use free assessment. And those books are very specific. The first book, Strength Finders, that would be for the typical person, the individual contributor. That's going to be your basic core book to use. But if you're in sales, I recommend Strengths-Based Selling by Brian Brim and Gallup. It's awesome. I've read it front to cover. It's got the free coupon in it. If you're in a leadership position, get your coupon in the back of Strengths-Based Leadership. If you're a student, college age, maybe high school, get the book Clifton Strengths for Students. It's gonna help you. It's gonna give you that free assessment for your top 5. If you're a teacher, teach with your strengths. And if you want to be a better parent, most of us do, strengths-based parenting. But again, if you're in business, if you're working, I would really recommend you get one of the other books that's related to your professional career first. So buy the book, follow the instructions in the back of the coupon for taking your online assessment. Allow yourself 1 uninterrupted hour. It will only take 35 minutes, but you want to be relaxed. You want to be calm. You want to be able to give your gut reactions. The questions will move every 20 seconds, whether you answer it or not. We want your gut reactions. Once you've taken the assessment, download your top 5 report from the Gallup website. It will explain your top 5 in personal detail. It will scare you how accurate it is. Study this report and read your book. Make and execute an action plan. What really got me excited about Clifton Strengths, and Teddy's mentioned it a couple times, there will be action steps that you can take based on each of your strengths to put them into action. And that's what really matters here, is doing something with this. Once you take your top 5, I do highly recommend that you upgrade to your full 34 results. You don't have to take the test again. Gallup already knows your 34 results. They just want to charge you $42 more roughly. It's worth it. Everybody that I've ever trained in Clifton Strengths paid for their upgrade, and no one ever said it wasn't worth it. Once you get that upgrade, you get a much bigger personal report. Take that 34 report and read it. Here's another option that you have during this session, because you've listened to me talk, and I really appreciate it. I'm going to give some workshops, some workshops to follow up on Clifton Strengths. Randy mentioned, I think the best way to do it will be to have 1 or 2 workshops for people that are in transition, and 1 or 2 workshop times for people that aren't in transition, that maybe are looking at different challenges they want to apply their strengths against. So reach out to my website. My website is listed right here, www.opt-1beat.com. Go to the Contact Us page, and you can type in one of those little contact messages, and I'll receive a notification. Let me know obviously your name, your email address, so I can reach back out to you. And let me know if you're interested, if you're in transition or maybe interested for a different reason. And that will help me start to build my email list, and we'll work together to get the right group of people together for each of the workshops at the right time. The other thing that I wanted, Teddy was mentioning this, Rand, these assessments, you got to do something with them. This one in particular, I love it. There's so many great assessments out there, and they all have great science behind them. But most of them are talking about your tendencies or your preferences. That's not what Clifton Strengths is doing. Clifton Strengths is giving you your top 5, your top 10 talents that actually help you create outcomes in your professional and personal life. But to do that, you're probably going to need some guidance and some help, whether that's with me or whether that's another coach or other people that have taken, that's great. But don't take this and keep it bottled up inside yourself. Share it with the people in your life, share it with the people that are around you so that they can get to know it also. Put a little sign up. I've never worked virtually. I've always gone into an office. When I left Hanesbrands, I had taken a number of people through this, and every one of them had put up their little sign at their cubicle of what their top 5 strengths were. It was so thrilling to see those little signs going up every week around the building of 1,000 people. So you share this. This is a great thing to share. Again, contact me through my website. And we're going to get some of those live workshops set up for late December, early January.
Cool. Malcolm, this is good. This is real good. I remember when I took my Strength Finder evaluation back in 2019. And by the way, I got back on the website. I contacted Gallup through their website, dude. I was trying to log in, couldn't do it. And their chat came up and I said, I don't have access to this old email address. I can't remember my password. He asked me a couple of questions and he gave me a new login. So I got back to my 2019 assessment and was able to, and I could have updated. By the way, the go to 34 is not in the $40 range. It's less than that now.
Good.
On their website. So yeah, I strongly encourage anyone to do real assessments that make them think, and then to really truly think about what are you saying about yourself. Good stuff. Thanks for sharing with us, buddy. Randy, thoughts?
Yeah, Malcolm, I'm always go back to that whole thing about saying, okay, I've found this lovely baseball. What do I do with it? All right, I've taken the assessment. I've got all this stuff. I'm sure you've coached people, you've worked with organizations. What if you could offer a tip or some advice or encouragement for people to stay with it? You talk about implement, stay with it. What are some action steps people can actually take to do that?
Man, Randy, thanks for asking that question. So when I work with a client, I give them, as you know, I give them a very short biography form. And on that form, I ask a couple key questions. What is the biggest challenge facing you right now? Number 2 question, what is the biggest challenge you see over the next 5 years? So before you can really utilize these talents, you have to know what you want to aim them against. And the biggest opportunity is, what's the biggest challenge you're facing right now? And for some people in transition, getting a job, great. So start peeling that back. How does your resume look? How do you do in interviews? Are you doing the networking that you need to do? Okay, think about those things. Then look at your talents. Which of my talents can I apply to networking? Maybe there's 1 or 2 of them. Which of my talents better apply to working with my resume or working on my interview skills? So think about it. Some of this is strategic thinking, mapping out a plan, gathering information, learning new stuff. Some of it is influencing others and building relationships. Who do I have in my network? Who is in my sphere of influence that can help me learn something or help influence something? And then I got to execute stuff, right? We go right back to the 4 domains. So start with what it is you want to accomplish. And then start building an action plan using your talents and say, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to try to use these talents. You do have to read the book. You do have to read your personal results to understand what those talents really mean. Does that answer your question?
I think it does. And also then, whether it's as a job hunter or as somebody who's working in a company and trying to enhance their career and their productivity, I think the same guidelines apply. What are the tasks? What are the goals? and how do I leverage my strengths to reach those goals? And
So,
okay, makes sense.
so let me give you one cheat on that too.
Yeah.
As a coach, my biggest cheat is this. Another question that I ask people to fill out is, what's the biggest accomplishment you've had in the last year, and what do you think led to that accomplishment? 80% of the time, I can go right back to that accomplishment and say, this is how you're going to overcome your biggest challenge that you face right now. So look at your past experience, answer that question. What is the biggest accomplishment I've had in the last 12 months? And how do I think, what contributed to that?
Yeah.
Especially from a strength standpoint. That will give you some real insight that you can accomplish whatever goal you set your mind to.
Malcolm, this is good stuff. This is good. Really appreciate you coming in today and sharing with us, and making this offer to help others who want to go do their strength finder and then join in a conversation. Again, go. I dropped it in the chat. Your web address is in the chat for anybody who is here to sign up, and you got to do that by 1:30 today, because it's there's a deadline and get people to move forward. Randy, I know who's on next week. Do you have a closing story? Because I do.
Well, I just make it, I guess, a brief one. And this was something I was on a podcast yesterday talking about why I do what I do and how I got involved with it and some of the hurdles that people face in the job search. And one of the things that I guess true confession here is that I've been very remiss in seeking out a mentor. I think a lot of folks, me included, tend to wing it too often. We tend to rely on what we feel we're good at. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients say, man, if I only had a good resume and a few job leads, I know I'd ace that interview. And I'm thinking, maybe not, but they tend to wing it. They don't feel like they need to put in the preparation. So I say all that just to kind of walk back to the beginning of this thing. I was probably in my 40s before I ever took Myers-Briggs, before I ever took any of this stuff. I just would wing it. I just felt like, okay, I'm like Forrest Gump. And I think the older I get, I realize the less that I know and begin to become more self-aware of strengths, of tendencies, of passions, and all of those things. So again, I say this most every week. It sounds like a broken record, and I'll leave with this. I learned so much from having guests like Malcolm and others on a weekly basis. Teddy, this is free education for us and for others that tune in. So you're really missing the boat, folks. If you're not watching these shows, I don't care if you're a job hunter or not. This is life, and understanding ourselves better and how our strengths can really play out in our work and personal lives is priceless. So Malcolm, hats off to you again. Thank you very much for coming out. Turn it to Teddy. I've got I know who's next.
I got it.
All right.
So next week, which will be 12/9, the time will be noon Eastern Standard Time. Lisa Downs is going to join us. Lisa guides 40-plus-year-old professionals, which I did some research on the attendees, Randy, and that's at least 2 or 3 of the people on here, at least. So, but she guides these professionals through what she refers to as mid to late career transitions. And so Lisa's going to come and bring conversations about your vision, your identity, working through your limiting beliefs. She's going to bring conversations about your age, about dealing and navigating and combating the stereotypes of ageism. It's going to be a really interesting show. Lisa's got some great ideas. I promise you'll get a lot of value out of Lisa and out of spending time with Lisa next week. So Malcolm, what my closing point about this, it's important for you to know yourself. Strength Finders is one way to know yourself from the talent perspective, not from the skill perspective, not from the attitude and behavior perspective. Those are important to know. Strength Finders is about knowing your talents, digging deep and understanding them, at least from the top 5, if not from all 34. So I encourage everyone to understand their strengths, and this is one great way to do it. So Malcolm, appreciate it again, buddy. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate it. Randy, anything else that you got that I missed?
Well, no, I think Malcolm, you touched on something early at the outset about if there's one thing to take away from the show? We usually ask our guests to kind of summarize and say, what are a couple, 3 things you would like us as the audience to take away from your talk today?
Sure, that talent isn't rare. We all have it. We're born with it, as Zig Ziglar said. We have talent, but most people do go through their life unaware of what some of their real big talents are. So becoming aware of it, owning it, and then leveraging it is really probably a key message here.
I like that word, leveraging it. I had no idea that I would be who I am today. You know what I used to do, Randy?
I do.
I was never about this until I figured out, and I think Strength Finders was a key piece of that. That was it wasn't in 2019. It was 2009.
Yeah.
2010.
Yeah. 9 or 10, I think is when you did it. That
was back in the Bald Eagle days. So
the life change. I remember that. I remember us sitting down a few times over the years. And so, yeah, it's been a long journey. Malcolm, thanks for joining us today. We really, truly appreciate you and your time and the input that you had. And I'm sure based on these comments, I'm seeing a whole lot of positive going on there. So again, hats off to you. Continue the good work. And I hope you'll consider coming back at some point here in the new year when this whole COVID thing hopefully is behind us and we can actually get out and meet again. But again, thank you, Malcolm. I appreciate it. Teddy, I think it's just about time.
Yep, just a reminder,
Yeah.
If you know anyone, Beth, Rita, John, and Michelle, if you know anyone else that you think would get value out of showing up for our shows, we want to have fun. We want to create value. Please let your friends know about this. The more people we can have show up, the happier our sponsors will be. And maybe one day, Randy and I will be able to get a new picture for our landing page because that graphic one's got to go, man.
We're a high budget operation one day, hopefully. You guys have a great week.
All right.
Happy Wednesday. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.